I'm your host, Sana, and let me ask you this. What if your need to be perfect is actually a mask for pain? Now, today in this episode, we are diving into something that so many of us quietly wrestle with, the exhausting loop between perfectionism, low self esteem, and the anxiety that binds them together. Our guest, Sara Nativi, she knows this cycle all too well. She spent years as professional ballet dancer performing with grace on stage while battling a storm of pressure, self-doubt, and burnout. Inside, when anxiety forced her to stop, she began a journey not just to heal, but to truly transform. And now, a clinical hypnotherapist and RTT practitioner, Sarah guides high achievers, creatives, and professionals to finally break free from the invisible patterns that hold them back. So, if you have ever asked yourself, or if you have ever thought about this, why do I still feel like this, even after all the work? This conversation is for you. So, with that, Sarah, welcome to the show. And I'm really, really excited for our discussion today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Beautiful. Sarah, you have been a ballet dancer. It's professional ballet dancer. It's a beautiful, beautiful form of art. So if it's okay with you, let's go back to the ballet years. How did the environment of performance and perfectionism, whenever personally I see ballet, I kind of see that there's a pressure in perfecting the posture, balance, and then synchronizing everything. So how did that environment of performance and pressure affect your inner world, even as your outer world appeared to be graceful?
Yes. It was a battle between what I felt I wanted and what the environment sort of wanted from me. And very convinced that perfection is unattainable for a human being. You know, we are imperfect creatures. We're all flawed human beings living in a flawed world. And that's not a problem unless we make it such. And I feel with the balletic environment, I always had to be perfect, make zero mistakes, and have this body that was, always the same weight and the same shape and it would never fluctuate. And for my mind, that was very challenging. And it ended up making me feel never good enough, never up to the mark. As you said in that beautiful introduction,
Mm,
behind that mask of perfection, there was a lot of pain and a lot of self doubt.
mm. Yeah, I can resonate deeply with that. I can resonate. And um many people assume, Sarah, that especially high achievers, they naturally have high self-esteem. Often that kind of gets translated wrongly into ego, or self kind of boistering about yourself, being boisterous. So in your experience, how true or untrue is that assumption?
Exactly. So I think commonly people see, as you were saying, a high self esteem with arrogance, a big ego, somebody that is maybe selfish. But I think that is a misconception. And in fact, working with people, I've also had some clients, that were that kind of stereotypical person that there's nothing wrong with me. I'm the best of the world and don't even dare criticize me. But then when I had the honor of seeing what was going on inside of them, I saw that this kind of like overstating how amazing we are, how untouchable, how great just comes from a deep sense of insecurity, which, it's like going back to the root of the other issue of being super insecure. And they share a common root. So anything that deviates, I like to say, from this natural confidence that we can all radiate because as babies, we possess that. There's no baby that says, "Oh, my nappies are dirty. Please don't look at me." Or "Today I'm a bit too chubby. I'm gonna just like feel not good enough." No, babies think that they're great, that they're amazing all the time. So this is our natural sense of worthiness. And then when we deviate from it, then we start these crazy compensation mechanisms where we either push ourselves to death or we just want to be these untouchable people that can never commit a mistake.
Hmm. Right. That's true. That's true. And Sarah, looking at your journey as well, there's a transition in there. You transition from something which is creative, more art. Now you are into uh, clinical hypnotherapy, RTT as well. What exactly um, catalyzed or motivated the transition in there?
Yeah. It was this sense of not being happy and not knowing why I wasn't happy in a job that should have been my like dream job. I would see people looking at me and thinking, she's so lucky because not many people succeed in the balletic environment. It's like really crazy. Sometimes there's 1,000 people in an audition and just one girl gets selected. And I was in this kind of situation. So I knew how valuable and precious my job was and how happy I should have been, but I was not happy. And let's say that in my development journey, I grew closer with more, let's say, spiritual concepts of having a soul and having a purpose and coming here to sort of Mm, let's say carry out a mission. And I now see that my mission wasn't being a ballet dancer, it was something else. And a part of being a ballet dancer kind of contributed to that mission because still through ballet, you communicate a lot with an audience and you do have an emotional exchange. But it was just then after when I allowed myself to try new things that I discovered what I really love is to have deep conversations with people that trigger change, both in me and in them. I think I benefit so much from my job. It's not just my clients that benefit from the situation.
Mhm. And since you come from the creative field and you also interact with professionals and creatives, um, I can definitely, you know, connect or imagine how differently pressurized the environment is, to stand out different among thousand or lakhs maybe, and that too in a creative field. So in that particular scenario, you also have mentioned that there are invisible anxiety loops. What exactly are these, Sarah, and why so many people they stay stuck in them even after trying talk therapy or coaching or even self-help tools or maybe meditation, yoga, and stuff like that?
Brilliant question. I call them invisible because they're subconscious. So let's imagine that we have a part of our brain that is the conscious brain that allows me and you to have a conversation. It will allow us to do 2 + 2 = 4. It will allow us to make a shopping list. So all these very tangible day-to-day tasks are done by our conscious mind. But then we have something that runs in the back and is taking care of our survival and our protection, and that is the subconscious mind. And many times it's our strong emotions, because anxiety is a strong emotion, a strong reaction, comes from something that is going on subconsciously inside of us. That's why consciously anxiety just comes, it's like this wave that comes over us and we feel powerless against it and we're like, what can I do? And we can mitigate anxiety by doing all the things you've listed. So you go to meditation, you do yoga, and definitely these things help. And I'm a yoga teacher also myself. So I do believe, obviously, in the benefit of it.
Mhm.
But I think that it doesn't quite go to the root cause of the anxiety. And not all times, but most of the times, when we have a deep understanding of what was that root cause, what happened to me at some point in my past, maybe in my childhood, that today makes me feel So anxious. For me, it was so anxious every time I have to talk in front of other people or I have to step on stage. And when I traced it back to those events in my childhood that made me feel not good enough, and they made me feel like I didn't fit in, like I wasn't deserving, then I understood why my brain was trying to protect me, creating this anxiety. It didn't want me to get embarrassed when I was talking in front of people. It didn't want me to make mistakes when I was going on stage because I had to be this perfect creature in order to be liked. So, through my profession as a ballet dancer and all that anxiety, that pain I was feeling, I was
Mhm.
confronted with these root causes and with my past.
Mm, yeah, that definitely makes sense. Makes sense. And Sarah, since you are working with a lot of high achievers, um, I mean, these people have, they're used to pushing, performing, and perfecting everything they do. Um, Not sure whether it's true or not, but I'm just thinking, um, do you see this same mindset pattern showing up in their healing journey too? Almost like they are trying to perfect the process of healing itself. And because in your own story, was there a moment when you also realized that transformation wasn't something to achieve, but it is something, being more organically inviting and more surrendering into it.
Yes, exactly. That is what I see happening a lot of times. What happened with me, of course, because I was the emblem of that high achiever, always not good enough. I can always do more. And even in the therapeutic process, I didn't have time for it. Like it had to happen now. It had to happen yesterday. I should have snapped out of my anxiety and the beginning I had of depression in 1 second. And that didn't happen. And it really threw me off. It was really something that I was like, why am I taking so much time to heal? And why is it so messy? That's another thing I find with high achievers. We want things to be super linear and simple, and things can't get messy, and people have to be in control of their healing journeys because usually high achievers are also a bit of maniacs of control. We want to control everything, including our healing journey, and we can't control that because being out of control is part of these, like, I see them as deep forces. I don't know how you would picture it, but for me, they're like these deep forces of our soul that just wants to evolve and wants to break these kind of like barriers that we've put upon ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. Because that is so, because these are so ingrained within them, and it's natural, that they will get kind of translated in their healing journey also. And I have definitely caught myself sometimes overdoing it, because it's like a feeling that I'm training myself for something really big, huge, and I need to perfect it in any way, anyhow, anyhow, any way it works. And it's almost like we're trying to win at healing instead of just letting it unfold in its own way naturally. So I think that's why it's very, very important to bring this aspect of healing as well.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Great, great. Um, and any practical steps that you swear by, and you would advise our listeners or anyone to take to rebuild their self-esteem, not just intellectually, but at the most basic level, like somatically or emotionally, especially if they have been in a survival mode for years.
Yeah. Well, there are several things. I'll list my personal favorites, the ones that worked for me. The first one was to reacquaint myself with the mirror. For me, a mirror was a bit of an issue. It was something that would highlight all the imperfections I had in my body. And I would consciously see my relationship with myself change based on how I was able to relate myself in the mirror. So I guess for somebody that is starting on this journey and maybe still can't look at themselves in the mirror and say, look at this gorgeous being, I'm not asking you to do that tomorrow because that is highly unrealistic. But just opening yourself to the possibility of one day looking at yourself in the mirror without finding any fault and just connecting with that light that we all have inside our eyes and that is shining all the time and building a relationship again with that person you see in the mirror. So, with yourself, I think building a relationship, a different relationship with me, considering myself as, a deserving human being, a good enough human being was a game changer. And things like looking at yourself in the mirror, looking at the spark in your eyes, wanting to, setting the intention of really wanting to start to learn how to love yourself is a great stepping stone. And if you want some more techniques on, but how do I suddenly do that? Try repeating internally some sentences because our subconscious mind listens to everything. Even when I'm talking with a friend and I say, ah, I'm stupid, I did a silly mistake, I'm an awful person, my subconscious registers these are very important things that I've been telling my friend about myself, and my subconscious now will believe them and will make me act accordingly. So instead of belittling ourselves, putting ourselves down, even because maybe it's, ironical to do so, let's be more mindful and let's use a different kind of language where we do introduce sometimes the words, you know what? I did my best and I'm resourceful and I'm a problem solver and I really care for people. As you were saying, it's not egoistic to say these things and it's not like we've got a inflated ego because we do so.
True. That's true. That's true. And that's where sometimes uh, perfectionism it's often framed as a strength in disguise. Mm, I mean, sometimes it really becomes a kind of silent saboteur. I mean, I would love to know your opinion on that.
I love that. The strength in disguise. Absolutely. Because perfectionism has got us pretty far in life, if we didn't have that mentality of let me get better, let me overanalyze, let me really understand this, we wouldn't have made a lot of progress. But then once we realize, okay, it has been serving me pretty well, because there's for sure some downsides of just being fueled by perfectionism. But let's say it brought me very far. But now it's not bringing me further. And that's the most destabilizing moment of a growth journey of a person, of switching that fuel that motivates you from negativity, finding faults, dissecting, not I'm not good enough, I need to get better, to I'm good enough just as I am, but I want to do better because I know I can do better because it makes me so happy to do it again and see if it comes out better. And this switching of this fuel is very, well, very challenging, but it's definitely possible.
True, true. Great, great. Um, and then, so I mean, this is a bit of a uh, discussion on the flip side for a deeper perspective. Um, there's a growing push in some circles on mental resilience being defined as powering through or doing the hard things. But what's the danger of mistaking survival strategies for strength? I mean, can too much grit become a kind of trauma loop, or is this something that we have to deal with? We cannot avoid.
Mm. No, I think that balance is always the key, which is very easy to say, harder to find. But just like in life, with food, with exercise, with rest, we need to find a balance. If I'm resting all the time, I'm doing nothing. Of course, that's not a good balance. But on the other side, if I'm always sort of pushing through things, and yes, okay, I'm becoming very resilient, but then am I actually ever living in that rest and digest mode, or am I always in fight, flight, or freeze? Because when we're always activated, our nervous system is always alert because we're tired, because we're pushing through, because we're concentrating when we should be resting. Then, well, I'm much more prone to catching disease. I'm much more prone to burnout and fatigue. And, I've been there, and burnout comes from exactly this, comes from becoming so resilient that at that point, you don't even understand anymore what is your body asking you. You totally lose the connection with your body, and you're kind of going on autopilot, but you don't really know anymore who you are, what you want, and then it's like this car that finished its all its gas, and then you're sort of like on the other spectrum, not able to get out of bed or feeling super tired and dragging yourself around.
True. True. Beautiful, beautiful, Sarah. So, if our listeners they would like to connect with you, what will be the best way to do that?
Mm. I always offer for the people that really want to get to know me and I've sparked something in them to book a call, which is free, just to do to have a conversation with me. Everything for me with a client starts from finding that synergy, that connection, that bond. And in a conversation, we can really see if there's that vibe. And I can listen to the things that this person has in mind that they want to change or they want to shift. And I can see if I'm the right person to help them in this journey. So definitely book a call. It's a 30-minute call. You have 30 minutes of my time. It's a free call. So it's something that I really give to people. I really am of service in this call. Yeah.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the details in the show notes. And Sarah, thank you so, so much for bringing such honesty, especially warmth, and of course, clarity to this space. I'm really thankful to you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here with you.
And to all the beautiful, mindful listeners out there. If you have been holding your breath, performing strength while craving softness, let this be your sign to exhale. You don't have to earn your worth through perfection. And you are not broken, you are just becoming. So, to connect with Sarah and explore her work, just check the episode description for links and details. And if you feel that this conversation moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that it is safe to come home to themselves. Until next time, this is your host, Sana, and this is The Mindful Living. Thank you.